Okay, hey guys, hope everyone's well. Just back from the Ireland trip, got a few more videos to put up about that, including a bit of a how to do your own Irish trip video, just to help people do their own thing. Tomorrow I've got a group ride coming down to ride the A2 bikes back to back, so just down here, just cleaning up the bikes, getting those ready for tomorrow. And I've also got the Iceland trip coming up in a few weeks' time, 4 weeks' time. So we're going to ship the bikes from Immingham on the east coast of England up to Reykjavik and then fly in, and we've got 2 weeks to go around Iceland and do some F-roads, which are the gravel track roads. We've got 12 riders on a mixture of bikes, sending in the van as a backup vehicle, and a couple of guys helping me out with that, Dave and Julian. So very much looking forward to that. And so I just thought I'd do a video, as I've got all the bikes out, got them all clean, on what bike for Iceland. And this is mainly for people who are looking for a manageable adventure. You know, my background is smaller bikes, smaller to mid-sized bikes, so that's where my kind of focus is. I'm using this Motorini X-Cape 650 as a bit of an example of the types of bikes I've not wanted on this trip. I put in the instructions, on the booking in instructions, I don't want anything over a 700cc bike. Actually, I put a 650cc bike for the fact that when I went to Iceland myself, I was on a GS 1200, and it's just too big a bike. You know, that sort of exploration, going through rivers, gravel track, bad weather conditions. You know, I was a fairly strong rider, but even with some basic skills, I still found those 250 kilo bikes just too heavy. And my fear obviously is that people tend to overbite themselves, and the last thing I wanted were people turning up with sort of a subset, not having the right necessary skills to ride a big bike off-road, and therefore A, they're going to have an accident, B, there's going to be a lot of time picking it up, and C, it would be me in the river dragging it out. And so I purposefully removed that risk element for me, and said anybody on a 650, single actually, or less. So that automatically removes the Marini and the Teneres and the KTM 890s and all those other big bikes. Although actually some of the guys who signed up on the smaller bikes have since asked if they can swap to their 890s. But in fairness, I think the small bike attracts a certain mindset, which is probably a little bit more modest of their abilities, probably a little bit more cautious, which I kind of like. So if they've decided to bring their 890 as well, as long as they bring that mindset that was going to ride the small bike, that's absolutely fine. So let's get this out of the way and go through a few bike options. It's basically just me going through why I would choose that bike or why I wouldn't choose this bike. People think I'm filthy rich or won the lottery for having all these bikes. No, I run it as a business for people to come down here and ride these bikes. It barely wipes its nose, but I love bikes and I hate selling them, so I end up with more of a collection than I anticipated. And I just think it's a great way to offer people the chance to ride these bikes back to back. So tomorrow we've got 5 guys coming down. We're going to take all these bikes out minus 1 or 2 and just get a feel for what they like about the bikes, what they don't like. And maybe, hopefully, they'll go away and make a purchasing decision which is more educated than if they hadn't have come down here. So that's kind of why I've got them. I'll be putting some more dates up in August time after Iceland, August, September, October. So there'll be plenty of dates in the calendar. I was intending to get the CF Moto 450 MT for the Iceland trip, but unfortunately, it's not going to be delivered in time. So it's left me with a bad choice of these instead. So starting at the top, we've got the Triumph 400X, so the Scrambler. It's just had its first service. I tell you what, I'm starting to really like what the bike offers engine-wise. It's got a real bite to it. It's low geared, so the pickup on the throttle is really strong, and it's actually quite exciting. Out the corners, it digs and it goes. On the gravel tracks and the trails, it's bop, bop. You know, you can lift that front end quite easily with it because it's always on power. And I've got to say, it's an exciting engine, and I've started to overlook maybe its flaws and focus more on its virtues, which is definitely that engine. It's a great fun bike, and I can see why they're selling well, because it looks great, and it actually, for most people, it rides great. You know, I find its limits when I start to push on. I find it gets a little bit choppy. It's probably a bit undersprung or whatever the terminology might be, but it just can't deal with chop on the back roads that we have around here. I mean, John at Rally Raid is looking at an aftermarket kit. So hopefully we're going to send me a suspension down if I chose to use this for Iceland. What swayed me away from this for Iceland is the fact that there's no proper mud guard on it. There's no rear hugger, so your back gets splattered with mud. There's not an easy solution for luggage. And so from a practical point of view, it pretty much rules itself out. I think it would also, Iceland and the gravel tracks would destroy it. I don't think the quality is quite there. I've had a few little niggles, issues, a threaded bolt on the bracket here. I've had the tab break off the brake light activator, switch on the brake light, and Triumph don't have any brake levers in the country, would you believe it? Just a fit and finish. One of the tabs has broke off the pillion seat mount, so that flops around a bit. So I do have question marks about the durability of this product, and I don't know if it is a true trip motorcycle, i.e. you could just, you know, go off into the sunset and bash it around and it'd come back in one piece. I don't know. Maybe Iceland would be a great durability test for it. So, you know, let's have a vote at the end. What bike should I take? Because I've got to decide at the end of today. So I'd love riding it. I love it on the gravel. I think it'd eat the gravel up, no problem. Downside, practicalities of it, and that's about it really. KTM 390 Adventure. Now, these are built in the same factory. Actually, Triumph don't have any brake levers, but KTM 390 has plenty of brake levers which fit the Triumph. So I think there is a lot of part sharing, and I still speculate that the new 397 KTM engine shares a lot with this 397 Triumph engine built in the same factory. You would suspect so, but who knows? The KTM 390 has been an overlooked bike for a long time, really. I think it was written off because it wasn't what we expected from KTM, and I've said that many times before. You know, it was a derivative of the 390 Duke, which was a road bike, and therefore it didn't have the ergonomics for the off-road stand-in, for the trail riding, for the enduro sort of ready to race slogan that stands behind this. It was a compromised bike, I think, and I think early reports and early reviews ruled it out for that reason. I think what you realise with the KTM 390 Adventure is you've got to not look at it as a trail bike. You've just got to look at it as a road travel bike that is capable of gravel track and dirt road. Because on the road it's fantastic. It's got the suspension that this bike needs. It's got the WP Apex suspension, which makes it gobble up back roads so well, so effortless, it's so quick, so comfortable. And so it'd fly around Iceland no problem. It's also more practical than the Triumph. It's got the screen on it, it's got a better rear rack. It just feels more versatile. And to be honest, that's got 8,000 miles on it, and I've not really had a problem with it. So it's actually been very dependable. Where it falls down a little bit is that electronic nannying, the fact that you've got to turn off the traction control and it re-engages every time because it's a Euro 4 model, not the 5. And the ABS, I think it would infuriate me in Iceland, and so it would ruin the great riding experience every time I came to a stop and had to go through the sub-menu to turn off traction control. I don't quite know why KTM thought it was so necessary to nanny that bike quite so much, but it does take the edge off it a little bit. Because, as I say, on the road, I think it's a fantastic bike, and anybody looking at this lineup of bikes and wanting a fast, capable road bike, which gives good long-distance ability, because it is pretty good on the motorway, plus some trails, I think the KTM 390 Adventure is a great bike, just not for this trip. We've got BMW 310 GS, which has got the Rally Race Stage 2 kit on it. Now, I do like that bike, and if anybody saw me, you know, trying to get it around the muddy lanes, the steep lanes of Devon recently, they'll know it is quite capable. It's got a great standing position with the Rally Raid upgrade kit. It's got better suspension, it rides well, and all in all, I like the bike. It hasn't got the traction control issues of the KTM, so it's more rideable, more jump on and enjoyable. And actually, when I've ridden these bikes back to back at Sweetland, which is a big sprawling adventure academy in mid-Wales, it's a 310 that just outshines this, just because it's got that natural standing position, because it hasn't got those electronic aids, and it's got a lovely usable throttle input, which means you can really sense what the back wheel is doing. So the 310 is another overlooked bike, in fairness, both these are, but it's got a lot of virtues for it, and I'd be happy to take it, but it doesn't. There's other bikes that excite me or give me reason to take it a little bit more, but there is a 310 GS on this Iceland trip. Actually, there's 3, so it'll be very interesting to see how it features. I think there's also a KTM 390, no Triumphs, but there is definitely a couple of CRF 300 rallies. Let's go to the CRFs. Now, you know, I bear no bones. I've never been a big fan of the CRF 300 Rally, simply the fact that I find it very expensive for what it is. I do like it, I like the way it rides, but I kind of feel like, come on Honda, you were creating incredible bikes 20 years ago, put a bit more effort in, you know. All you seem to do at the minute is put the price up rather than increase the ability of the machines. So I do struggle with the Honda, although for Iceland, it would be the perfect bike. There is nothing to fault it for Iceland. It's light, it's manageable, you get some luggage on it. I don't have an uprated shock, so it's going to be a bit soggy. Whether you would need that shock for luggage, because we are camping, we've got some camping nights, we've got some hotel, bunkhouse and camping. So the bikes are going to have to carry some luggage. But primarily the CRF is a perfect Iceland bike, certainly for shipping it in. You know, I don't think there's anything more reliable, more dependable, and better suited to it. And for the fact that it just doesn't excite me to ride quite so much, or there's a better option to come, then I'm not taking this bike. But yes, there are 3 guys going on CRF 300s, and I think for Iceland, absolutely spot on. Himalayan, obviously, blown enough smoke up the 411's arse over the years. Again, a perfect bike for Iceland. It's heavier than the CRF, but it's got that low down weight. It's got the chug. It's going to chug through rivers nice and easy. It's going to load up plenty of gear nice and easy. It's got plenty of speed. I mean, all these bikes have got the speed for Iceland because the speed limit's only like 50 miles an hour. So it's not a question of speed. I think I've ruled this out just because I've done that many miles on it. I'm no longer curious as to what it can do because I've done it on it. But for anybody who is wanting a cheap-ish, you know, everything's relative. If anybody's wanting a cheap, small adventure bike that can do Iceland without any modifications or any change, you're looking at it. You can get a brand new one of these for 3,800 quid. Buy that bike, you've automatically saved £2,000 over these bikes here, and that's going to pay for your trip to Iceland. You know, again, no brainer really. It might not excite you, it might not tick your boxes dynamically, whatever, but as a cheap bike to do the job of adventuring, for places like Iceland, for Morocco, one of these. Or a second-hand one of these, you know, options. Coming on to the 450 Himalayan, which obviously I put a video up the other day, and I said they missed the mark, and I still think they have, because this doesn't do what that does as well as that does. For Iceland, for the novice, for the average rider, that is still going to be better than this, because it's lighter, it's more manageable, it's better for carrying luggage. It's got that resonance about it, which would make it perfect in a situation like Iceland when you're up against the bad weather, when you're in a river, when you're in a gravel track situation. I still think that's a better bike. Got more feel on the throttle, which is a large part of why I don't think I like this quite so much. It's got better low down traction. It's better weighted, as we've said. Softer brakes, which means you're not going to get that front end bite and dig that you might get on something like this. So for Iceland, shipping bikes in, this over this. Why I've put this ahead of it is because A, I'm still curious. You know, I did a road ride around Ireland and I was unsure. Actually, I didn't gel with it in around Ireland. I thought it's a great bike, but I didn't connect with it. I didn't feel it. So I'm keen to try again to see if I can spend more time on it to tease out its attributes. I'm also putting it here because we are shipping our bikes to Iceland, but you could also ride your bike to Denmark and get the ferry to Denmark, from Denmark to Iceland. Now, if you were doing that option, then I think this out of all these bikes actually would make the most sense because it has got the bigger bike chops, feels a bit bigger, definitely needs a bigger screen. I need to try that. So it would compromise the road to get there, plus the trails once you were there, and it would do it probably a bit better than these, but it depended on your route. If you're doing more motorway, then this, but if you're doing back roads to Denmark, I don't think it would matter. But for curiosity's sake, I'm very nearly considering taking the 450. I still want to see what it's like in a tricky situation. When your back's against a wall, does it become a friend or foe? And the weight is that question. Even moving the bikes around here, pushing them back here. It's the heaviest bike here. It's got a bigger weight to it than any of the others. And you know, some people are saying that's not an issue for them, and that's great. And it'll be interesting to see how the market, the buyer base responds to those criticisms or whatever they are. So for now, it's a nearly, very nearly. I'm very keen, and I might still. But coming on to the choice for the trip, to be honest, and it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And it's interesting why we choose different bikes, and we can analyse bikes, and we can look at specs, and we can ride them back to back even, and we can make judgments, and very calculated judgments as we do in everyday life. You know, we can make logical, brain-led decisions, or we can take emotionally led decisions. And the Vosges, since I did the long trips on it last year, and I rode it, actually, you know, I came back here after the trip on the Himalayan 450, and I just took this home 2 miles away, and I jumped on it, and it lit me up, you know, oh, Bob. And you can hear it popping on the overrun, and it's just got a sprightliness. And I just love its weight. It's much lighter than this, closer to the CRF, but without the lean on the stand. It hasn't got the soggy suspension of the CRF, and it's £2,700 cheaper to buy. So you could buy a Vosges, go to Iceland and buy it, have a great adventure, have a great bike. Job's done, really. And I really do enjoy riding this bike. It's been reliable, and actually the quality is better than the Triumph. And the quality is up there with all the rest, really, bar the CRF. The Himalayan's still an unknown. But the quality is there, the parts are there, the enjoyment of the ride is there. When I go trail riding, it's my favourite bike to ride trail riding. So you've got to think, you know, where are the compromises, or what's the logical decision? But they just come. If you base your bike decision based purely on what you like, what you enjoy riding, I don't think you can go wrong. I think that would be my conclusion. Choose what you enjoy riding most, even if you have to adapt it or compromise it or do something. Take the bike you enjoy riding the most, because in the morning when you go out to your bike and you love riding your bike, that's the best thing. That's what keeps you going. You've got to enjoy your bike. If you don't enjoy your bike, it's the wrong bike, even if somebody else said it is the right bike, or the magazines say it's the right bike, or the YouTubers say it's the right bike. If you don't enjoy it, it's not the right bike. You've got to go with what warms you, what gives you a bit of a giggle when you get on it and go. And I love the fact that it's a cheap bike, but I love the fact that it does the job. Actually, this and the Himalayan 411 have got a lot in common. Both cheap bikes, both do the job. And it's a simple calculation for me as that. So for Iceland, if I was setting out, I mean, the only issue is seat height, and that might put some people off, which is why I'd steer them towards maybe the 411. If you're a bit shorter leg, 411, or maybe the 310 GS, because that's got a nice low seat height. A lowered CRF, maybe, you know, but that would be the only thing against the Vogue. It's a tall seat. But if you can manage the seat, because the bike's nice and light, then yeah, for me, it's just a bit of a no-brainer. Where that CF Moto 450 is going to sit, I think it's going to be up here. And I think it's going to be up here because, as I said, if you're going to Iceland on the road, that twin-cylinder engine, I think, is going to go up the motorway to Denmark easier than any of these bikes here. That's my feeling about it. And then if it's capable on the trails, if it gives confidence on the trails as well, which I still need to test, then I can't see why it wouldn't be the best compromise for all these bikes. But choosing a bike, whether you, as I say, coming back to it, choosing a bike for any trip, just choose the one you enjoy riding. It's a bit like Bruce Smart when he went around the world on the GSX 1000. You know, why did he go around the world on a GSX 1000? Because he loves riding his GSX 1000. It was a terrible bike choice, you know, practically, logically, sensibly. It was a terrible bike choice. But he loved that bike, and that bike made his trip. He come back with great memories because he was on the right bike. So don't agonise too much. Listen to the heartbeat rather than to the head sometimes, because the heartbeat will make the right decision in life. The head will sometimes cloud judgment. So come down to me, go to your dealer, wherever. Just try a few bikes, sit on a few bikes, listen to a few bikes, ride a few bikes, and the right bike will find you. I think that's often the thing. The right bike will find you eventually. All right, take it easy. I'm going to give him a bit of a shine and a bit of chain lube, and then we're going to make a decision. What should I take? What would you take? What would you take to Iceland, 2 weeks around Iceland on trail and road? Tell me in the comments. Cheers.